We're moving into power rankings, and the internet does not like that. So
I also
don't like. I know you don't like power rankings, but we're forcing you to do it. We're forcing you to do it.
Who doesn't love power rankings?
Emily just said she.
Name them all, 1 through 10. But because the LPL is suspended and the LCK hasn't started yet, we only have our LCS and LEC power rankings, and we are going to throw them up in just a second. But I took a glance, but I don't remember any of them, and I didn't vote in them. First of all, who voted in the power rankings?
I have voted.
Yeah, I did.
So there's only 2.
So it was me, Emily, Adele from Europe, Ashley Kong, who we just talked about for Korea, and Miles Jim, who's a North American reporter. So us 5 usually do the global power rankings because of the LPL and because of the LCK not starting yet. We did a NA and EU power ranking. These are our NA power rankings right now. C9, number 1.
Should come as no surprise.
No surprise. I think the biggest surprise here, and I think the thing that we're going to be discussing most here, TSM number 5. They're 1 and 2. They're above Immortals, who they beat.
Why is Team Liquid above Dignitas?
Because they have a better understanding of the game. I actually agree with Frosk a bit. The Dignitas are I think they're playing really well, and I like the team a lot, and I want them to do well, but I think they're slightly overrated.
Short it, boys.
But in terms of TSM, TSM's early games, especially week 1, were actually really good. I think they have a lot of good pieces, and if they can put it together, they'll be that team that we talked about when we just looked at this roster on paper.
Now, before we dive a little bit deeper into these rankings, I do want to point this out, Jacob. You're usually on the end of receiving criticism, but now we can sit here and we can ask them why they decided to rank what. But I mean, I didn't have too many issues with those rankings. I think that that's pretty fair.
I'm not sure if I'm so sold on TSM at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's on name power, right? And I think
I don't know.
They did almost lose to EG.
Well,
yeah, they did.
we talked about team atmosphere earlier of C9, right? And how the team atmosphere just ups the players. Sven looks better because he's on C9. We have to look at TSM and their team atmosphere. And I'm not saying it's bad, but we know this. It's serious. Yeah. It's life or death every game they play. Bjergsen doesn't put up with losing. This is a team that's serious all the time, and talent suppression machine aside, the team is it's a struggle. Watching them play, sometimes it feels like they're on a tightrope, and any mistake they're going to fall off. It's really tense. I think tense is the best word to sum up TSM because they're always playing like their life is on the line, and that's not the best play. The best way to play League of Legends sometimes, especially with C9, who look like, we're Vulcan trolling around, Sven having fun. I think TSM, there's a lot of pressure every time they play, especially with this roster. Dardoch, this is his last chance, I think, to be on a star team. It's really pressure filled on TSM.
So the one thing about that, though, is what is the spring split anymore? If you feel like that in the spring split, right? If you
just feels like you're gonna burn out.
I know, exactly. It's are we gonna end up in May and June, and this team's gonna be so sick of each other, we're gonna start seeing changes in the midseason? Lighten up. It's my biggest concern with Liquid too. From if they need to, the framing of the context of what they're working at, they need to change that. But I agree with you, Tyler. I think that TSM does look like they're on a tightrope every single time they play. It's the spring split. This is week 2.
By
week 3,
a strong roster.
Yeah,
they're incredible.
They're incredible. Kabe has had a couple of great years in Europe. They went ahead and they made the trade to get Bifrost back because they thought he was good for the culture. He had played in TSM before. They brought in Dardoch, who has wanted to play for TSM before and gets along with Bjergsen and really respects Bjergsen. And I think really the most lighthearted person on this entire team is Broken Blade, and I don't know, they need to lighten up.
I can jump in there.
Just a little bit.
Because I think Biofrost is going to positively contribute to the atmosphere.
I agree. I think
BB is also a sweetheart, and I will jump off a bridge or something for him. He is a sweetheart and needs to be protected. He's definitely always there, pumping up the team, pumping up the players, and getting everyone kind of in the zone. We saw the first split where he joined TSM. He was already leading the huddles and leading the chants. And Bjergsen was kind of taking him in under his wing, saying and trying to guide him and direct him through exactly the roughness of TSM. But let's talk about that spring split for a second, because a lot of people coming in to 2020 have said exactly that. What's the point of the spring split? Why should people care as much if it's not helping them get into Worlds? But you're still forgetting that it's determining who's going to MSI, who's representing NA as a region as the best team halfway through through the year at an international competition. And I think that carries a lot of weight.
Well, especially for teams like you think of TL, you think of TSM. I'm not going to comment more on the culture fit, but I think like both of these teams definitely have MSI in mind because they are kind of those more like super serious competitive teams. And I think, you know, both of them are looking at going to MSI hopefully. So I mean, I know they were just talking about it, but like for TSM, having such a shaky start is kind of unfortunate. I'm actually not as down on them as you guys are.
I'm not down. My jury is still out.
I'm not down. I'm trashing on them.
Yeah.
My jury is still out.
The reason is actually I don't think their early games have been half bad. I also like how we see Dardoch pathing topside a lot more. And just the spread of this team and what they're trying to do, especially early, I really like. I think it's during the mid game that they kind of lose focus and they get overtaken by other teams. But in terms of the early game, in terms of what it looks like they're trying to do, giving Broken Blade more carrying power, Dardoch pathing topside, I actually think, especially in week 1, his early games were fantastic and they were aggressive, and it's something I want to see from TSM. And Kabe is kind of the perfect AD carry to fit into that thing where he's always going to be stable. Their bot lane's going to be stable, and they can try more stuff topside. So I'm not super down on TSM. Now watch them lose tonight because I hyped them up.
Okay. Well, here's the last thing, because I want this to be the last point before we move into the LEC power rankings. Darin, I kind of want to direct this at you because I don't watch the normal sports. I know that you watch the normal sports, and I want to ask a question
normal sports game yesterday.
On Burnout. On Burnout, because we see teams like Team Liquid for 2019, they went through Spring Split, they won. All the way through MSI to the finals. They were close. Summer Split again, and then by Worlds, it seems that these players are just so tired. Similar to like teams like G2 and the LEC, they had participated in every single event, almost pulling off the Grand Slam. How does this affect these players just when it gets to the end of the year and at the most important tournament of their lives?
Yeah, we had actually had a lot of conversations about a story around that sort of concept, like a team like Team Liquid or G2 who does do all this international travel because they are the best in their respective regions. I think the difference between a team like G2 and TL is they are mostly competing regionally 90% of the time until they get to Worlds. Even if you make it to MSI, you're getting a handful of games. And while that's great experience, if you need to be able to work your way through the slog of those 2 9-week splits and come out of it better. And when you talk about something like Team Liquid and G2 is going to come out of that stronger because their competition in their region is stronger and tougher. So even though they might be both burned out, G2 is going to be better equipped for that world slog because they've been through hell and back with their own region. Team Liquid doesn't really have that much more punching bag power. I mean, yes, right now they're looking medium because they have Surenfire instead of Broxah, and we'll see if the Broxah experiment works out whenever it actually does. But I think that what people should be looking at for the spring split is experimentation, have some fun, and stay refreshed and lighthearted about League of Legends. And don't, MSI is great, but again, I think if you can't even compete and come together and have some fun in your spring split, then what's it really matter?
Yeah, take care of yourselves.
I think the big thing is that MSI this year, at least for North American teams, will serve as an affirmation of identity depending on who qualifies. And what I mean by that is the fact that if Dignitas qualifies and goes to MSI, if they're the one that makes it out, they need that. They need the affirmation that they are a good team, and they want to see how they can compete internationally. I would say the exact same thing for Cloud9, right? They've made some pretty significant changes. Blabber's full-time now in the jungle, and then you also see them switching out bot lane. These are the teams that need to be told by results, not by other people, that they are very good at what they do. It is less of a thing, for me at least, than Team Liquid or TSM, which could really suffer from having to play an additional tournament in between, a time that they kind of need a break and really be refreshed heading into summer where all the marbles are on the table.